You think Oppenheimer just built a bomb? He didn't. He managed something far more dangerous: egos, uncertainty, the brightest scientific minds on Earth, and a deadline defined by war. The Manhattan Project wasn't just a physics problem, it was a management nightmare, and somehow he made it work. Let's slow this down. When people hear Manhattan Project, they imagine a single secret lab. It wasn't. It involved more than 130,000 people, multiple hidden cities, parallel uranium and plutonium programs, military oversight, scientific chaos. Oak Ridge enriched uranium, Hanford produced plutonium, and Los Alamos, Oppenheimer's laboratory, had to design a weapon that had never existed in human history. This was not incremental innovation. This was theoretical physics forced into reality, and no one knew if it would work. Here's the strange part. Oppenheimer had never managed anything at this scale. No industrial leadership, no military background, no factory operations experience. So why him? Because he could speak multiple intellectual languages: theoretical physics, experimental physics, chemistry, mathematics. He wasn't just brilliant, he was integrative. And in complex projects, integration is everything. Oppenheimer recruited the best minds in the world: Richard Feynman, Enrico Fermi, Niels Bohr, Hans Bethe. Brilliant, opinionated, competitive, potentially impossible to manage. But he didn't micromanage. He created an environment where genius could collaborate. He listened, he facilitated, he translated between disciplines. He allowed debate, but enforced direction. He turned individual brilliance into coordinated effort. That is not science. That is leadership. Then came the real crisis, the plutonium problem. Originally, scientists believed a simple gun-type design would work. It didn't. Plutonium behaved unpredictably. It would pre-detonate, which meant the entire design approach collapsed. Imagine that. Halfway through the most expensive secret military project in history, and your primary design fails. Most leaders freeze in that moment. Oppenheimer pivoted. He approved a completely new implosion design, far more complex, far more uncertain. He reorganized teams around it, accelerated experimentation, absorbed the risk. That decision saved the project. But he wasn't alone. General Leslie Groves controlled funding, logistics, and security. Military discipline on one side, academic freedom on the other. Two completely different cultures. And yet, they worked. Because Oppenheimer understood alignment. He respected Groves' authority. Groves trusted Oppenheimer's intellect. It wasn't ego dominance. It was mutual necessity. And then there was time. Germany was racing. Every delay carried existential weight. Oppenheimer maintained urgency without creating panic. He focused attention on the most critical problems, compressed milestones, prioritized relentlessly. Modern project managers call this risk-driven scheduling. At Los Alamos, it was survival. He also understood something subtle. Proximity accelerates innovation. Instead of isolating scientists across the country, he centralized them. In one remote location, problems were solved over lunch, in hallways, during late-night debates. Ideas collided rapidly, cross-functional integration before the term existed. And finally, July 16, 1945, the Trinity test. If it failed, the project might collapse politically. If it succeeded, the world would change. The bomb worked. The objective was achieved, on time, under secrecy, under radical uncertainty, with no priest.